My name's Toby Thompson. I'm here with Heather Stebbings, looking at organisational transformation. Heather, tell us a little bit about that topic. What does that mean? These are very long words.
Oh, hello, Toby. Thank you for inviting me in today. Yes, organisational transformation. I think that's a question that troubles a lot of organisations. And one of the reasons for that is that, despite vast amounts of research in the last 50 years, organisations are still experiencing far more failure than they are success. And by success, what I mean is the ability to actually continue their business bigger, better, faster, more, perhaps in some way. So what I've done is conduct, in the first instance, a little bit of a literature review to understand what's currently known, what's out there in the world. And there's a concept known as morphing. Now, there's some very important academic researchers in America, Violin Rindover and Suresh Kotha. And what they talk about specifically is the ability of an organisation to continuously rearrange and exploit their resource base. And when we think about that, frequently what we do is we look at change in terms of whether it's periodic, whether it's staged, whether it's an evolutionary process. One of the interesting things to come out of this is another piece of work by some guys called Lawler and Worley. And what they've discovered is that effectively organisations can't seem to implement change on a continuous or rapid basis, basically because they're not designed to do so. So what does that mean for organisations now? What are the implications for perhaps practitioners in the world who are struggling perhaps to understand why organisations are getting stuck or why change programmes are put in at such a frequent basis? Well, one of the things that I'm currently researching is this ability of an organisation to really get into the mechanism for change. And I don't just mean culturally improve a mindset, develop a leadership evolvability that supports change. What I'm talking about is the actual interdependencies and reliance that organisations have on some of their perhaps information flows, perhaps a critical dependency. And one of the things that struck me in a recent piece of research that I've done is that where organisations frequently strive to improve efficiency, what they do is they go through a benchmarking process, they'll go through a number of change programs to put together an optimum level of operating. What that actually does is entrench process. It embeds a way of working which increases rigidity and stops a level of flexibility.
So a groove, they're stuck in the groove.
So they are stuck in the groove, and it's a great way of operating if driving down your production cost or driving down your total cost of ownership is important to you. If actually what you really need to do is have that ability to flex on a continuous basis, what perhaps you need to look at is changing the relationships, changing the interdependencies between a lot of these resources. And by resources, I don't just mean perhaps just the technology. I mean perhaps to another business process, perhaps to another human actor. It could be that the CEO isn't the man that calls the shots. It could be the chief financial officer who decides that the way in which the business is going to run is along these different lines.
What I haven't quite got yet is it in response to external change, or is it the organisation themselves feeling they need to change internally? Where's the change? Where's the driver coming from?
So that's a very interesting point. What we're finding now is that there's actually this paradox of evolution. It's this ability to balance both the internal pressures and the external pressures. Most companies will talk to you about the challenges of business as usual as well as reacting to the external environment. So what we have is this continuous state of tension between keeping up and getting ahead. And the more we look to pursue transient advantage, the more we look to pursue the way in which we can get ahead, perhaps in the bigger, better, faster, more. What we're actually having to do is flex internally at a different rate to how we respond externally. So that's where this concomitant condition of continuous tension is actually going on.
Classic scenario by the sound of it for something breaking, things oscillating at different frequencies.
Absolutely, and what we tend to find is that when tensions don't quite match up, there'll be a level of inertia, and organisations will suddenly get to, oh crikey, we need to change. Yeah, and then we end up with what's called a punctuated equilibrium stage, where everything happens, all the deck chairs move, or a particular part of the ship moves, but nothing else does. What I'm interested in is all the interdependencies, such that if you move something over here, it's intrinsically going to affect something else over here, and that could be a business process. So when people talk about organisational change, I'm interested in it from all of those interdependencies. So I'm looking at morphing through interdependencies.
So your role then, if I had a client on Monday morning, they wanted you in, I want Heather, I want her now, it would be as a consultant, as
Absolutely.
a theorist? What would you be?
So one of the advantages that I have in that I bring to the table, I've got 20 years of fixing complex business problems, and I've got that track record behind me that absolutely says this is what it is, this is how it works. And if we look at transformation and we look at organisations that have perhaps been through a process of continuous change, what they've then got is the ability to turn around and perhaps be able to morph more effectively in the future. So yes, I'm absolutely in there.
Building resilience.
Well, I think resilience is is another term entirely. So resilience is the ability almost of withstanding shock, as well as being able to continuously react to things. Now that's slightly different to the proactive, anticipatory functions that perhaps evolving organisations have.
Very quick last question. If you had the chance for your next PhD, your next DBA,
Yeah.
next piece of research,
Yeah.
what would that be?
My next DBA would probably be on, well, I think I've covered 20 so far. I think I'd probably have to do something around the impact of leadership in developing that evolvability. That would probably be an area, but I know that that's a subject that's currently in the research domain.
Heather, thank you very much indeed.
You're very welcome. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.